Hello everyone, welcome to the last episode of One Up Coding JavaScript. This one's going to be a wild one. Yeah, let's just hop right into it. Enough of me wasting any time. So, so what are we going to do? All right. So, what are we going to build? Well, I'm going to use JavaScript. I'm going to look for an API, right? And okay, you know what? None of this is probably making sense. So, why don't we make an app? Why don't we do that? Why don't we make a Twitter app? This is a very common one. This is one I like to do because I don't know. I actually don't use Twitter ever, but it's a good tutorial, I guess, on how to do these sort of things. So I'm gonna be starting straight from scratch, and when I mean straight from scratch, I mean like all the way, like not joking around. I'm literally starting from nothing. I haven't learned about any. I haven't learned. Okay, I have a little bit of experience, right, dealing with the Twitter API, but I'm gonna try it in a totally new way. And so you guys are gonna see the whole process of, hey, if I wanted to build this app, where would I go from there? So what is the goal? In this lesson, I want to be able to generate. I want to make tweets, and I want to be able to post tweets maybe every day. Okay, and the tweet maybe will be a random number. Okay, yeah, let's do that. I will tweet a random number every day, and yeah, this is totally for educational purposes. So how do you do that? First, let's get on the internet. Let's just get on Google Chrome. Oh, okay, it opened up on my second desktop. Okay, so you would do this too. You would get on the internet, and let's totally just look up a couple of things. So the first thing, okay, how do you actually build an app, right? Or how would you build a bot? We're making a Twitter bot here. Well, you're gonna deal with what's called an API. So what is an API, right? I could look up what does API stand for. It stands for Application Programming Interface. All that basically means is, or like in the practical sense, or basically, all right. So what is an API? An API is basically what lets you interact with another resource, right? Another application, right? So in this case, that other application is Twitter, right? And so if we wanted to write some code to interact with the Twitter interface, right, we would use their API, their application programming interface. And so you might be thinking, well, does Twitter even have that? How do you know if Twitter has that? Well, luckily in our case, if you look up Twitter API, and it'll take you immediately to the Twitter this docs, right? So I'm gonna click on this, right? These are the docs, right? Documentation on how to use the Twitter API. Now you'll notice, okay, I have I already have like a Twitter developer account. Yeah, let's log out. But in this case, you would have to create a fresh new Twitter account, right? So let's first off create a Twitter account right now. Yeah, why not, right? I'm gonna just throw in some random stuff. Oh wow, those are kind of weird. Let's call this. Wait, hold on. I think I already have one actually. Hold on. Let me try and log into. Let's try and log into the one. MHS at gmail.com. Let's try this. I don't remember if I don't. Hold on. Let me see if I remember the password. But in your case, you would create a whole new Twitter account. Let's see if this works. Oh, okay, I actually remember the information. So in the past, I created a Twitter account for this series. I call this like advanced JavaScript. I think I'm gonna take that down because it's kind of a lie. So how do we actually do this? Okay, now let's hop on the developer page, right? So if you look up again Twitter API, and let's say you wanted to use Google's API, right? Then you would type in Google API. Google is your favorite resource. You just type in anything API, and in most cases, if it's a big company, right, or if it's a company that that typically you would imagine doing this kind of thing. They just have their API available. And again, so API is how a developer like you or me or anyone out there, how they would be able to interact with the resources that Twitter provides, right? So there are resources here. You can post tweets, you can read tweets, right? These are all things that you can interact with once you're a part of the Twitter API. So let's go back to the documentation. Now the documentation teaches you how to use their API, right? And so before you actually are able to use their API, it'll ask you to create a developer account. So you have to fill out this long survey on applying blah blah blah. Like they have to check to make sure you're not wasting their time, or they have to check you're not using it for malicious intent, right? So I already did all that, but again, all you would have to do is click apply, right? It would apply for developer account. Fill out all the information. Just be honest. Just be like, yeah, I'm a student. I'm trying to mess around with the Twitter API. I'm just trying to learn here, and then they totally allow you to use the resources. Okay, so now we're at the Twitter API. But the thing is, right, this is the generic Twitter API. This is the generic Twitter API interface. What I mean by that is, this is how, if you had nothing, if you only had like basic JavaScript, if you only had basic JavaScript, this is how you would be able to interact with the Twitter API. But someone out there built some kind of library, and I'll show you guys how to get this library and stuff. But someone out there built a library that already interacts with these things and simplifies all those interactions. What I mean by that is someone out there has a toolbox that makes it easier to use this API. And so we're going to find that, right? And there are actually plenty out there. Now, where are they? Well, first of all, let's talk about Nodejs. So we installed Nodejs in the last lesson, right? And what is Nodejs? Well, again, you can read it. It's a runtime environment that executes blah, blah, blah outside of the browser. But yeah, this is as clean as it gets, all right? So it's basically, right, a little tool that helps you run code, JavaScript code, not within the browser. So if you remember in the last episode, we used I don't remember when, but in the last episode, we had to use an HTML file that accesses a browser, and then we had to use a Python server to open up to establish a temporary server on our computer, just so that we can have the HTML file run, just so that we can have the JavaScript file run, right? That's a long process just to get this one JavaScript file to run. But the Node.js does all of that without the whole detouring all the way into HTML files and all that, right? Detouring to the browser, right? So Node.js takes you directly from JavaScript to your compiler, and it runs your code. Now, the caveats with that are obviously you can't make a website using this. You can't make a website tool, but what you can do is you can work on the Twitter API still, right? Because you don't need to have a whole new website in order to run some Twitter code, to interact with the Twitter code. All you need is just like a text file. You wouldn't need the entire website. So that's why we're going to use Node.js. Now I already installed Node.js. Hopefully you already installed Node.js. And we're going to move on from here. Okay, so how do you actually use Node.js? Well, there are a couple of ways. I'm going to show you a basic way. So let's all hop into our file explorer, and we're going to create a new JavaScript file, right? So I'm going to just throw it in my documents. I'm going to call it, I'm going to, go to a file. I'm going to click, file, new, folder. I'm just going to call this Twitter app 1, okay? this is the name of my project, okay? And I'm just going to create a new script, right? I'm actually, okay, before I create a new script, right? I'm going to just throw a JavaScript file in here, right? I can do that by right-clicking and then clicking Open with Code. If you don't know how to do that, just open up Visual Studio Code. This is an IDE we installed last time, and this is going to help us run JavaScript code, right? So, or actually create JavaScript code and then run it. Okay, so how do we actually do this? All right, again. So whoa. Okay, that's a secret project. Okay, so here's what you do. Okay, I'll show you this part, right? So you look for the folder that we just created, and then Twitter app. I'm gonna select this folder, and then Visual Studio Code should automatically go to that to that destination. So we have nothing in this folder, right? This is the folder. We have nothing in it. So if you click New File, we can create a new file inside of it, right? I'm gonna call this script.js. Right, and I'm gonna have a very basic script in here, console.log. Hello world. This is a classic example. Everyone loves hello world. I'm gonna save this. Okay, yeah, and I have an extension called I think it's called Prettier, right? And it automatically formats your code for you. You can install these extensions and then have it run on save. Those are things that you can look up. Don't worry about that for now. Just type it manually. Okay, so why am I so distracted all the time? So I can either open a terminal in here. If I click new terminal, it'll open up a terminal at this destination, right? A command prompt, right? So what we need is the command prompt, right? So there's two ways to do this. Again, we can use the terminal that's built into Visual Studio Code. We can run some code here, right? Or we can run not code. We can run some commands here. Or the way I like to do it, I like to do it half of the time, is if you're in the file, right? If you're in the folder that you want to edit, right? Or you want to run commands in, you click the top, you type in CMD, you press enter, and bam, it opens the command prompt at that destination. Now, you could also just type in, go to the menu, type in CMD, it open a new command prompt, and you'll notice this destination is at my user, right? But you'd have to change directories by typing cd like documents and then climb your way down to this one folder. That's another method you could do. But okay, long-winded explanation. How would you actually run this code using Node instead of a browser? And you would just type in Node script, the name of the file, script.js, right? And it prints hello world. So just by typing Node, right? Node is the compiler, right, that we're actually using, and then the compiler takes in the argument of the script name, right, of the file we just created. Once by saying node script.js, you're running the compiler on the file that you created. So now it ran and I printed hello world. So now if we created a huge text file, right, of a bunch of code that uses the Twitter API, all we have to do is type in node blah blah blah. Okay, the next step, right? What do we need next? Well, we need that. I talked about how there's some toolkit out there that helps us deal with the Twitter API a little bit better. And the reason I say that is because if you go on the Twitter API, let's say you want to post, retrieve, and engage your tweets, and you look at all this stuff, and what does this all mean, right? And then you go to the guides, right? You thinking that it would help, and then it doesn't do anything, and then you go to the API reference, and it's still very confusing, and you could do 50 Google searches, figure out how to do all this. What is this? What is going on with the use resource URLs and everything? And I guess one day, if you guys email me or something, I'll explain to you how you actually interact with all of these individual items. But let's figure out a better toolkit to deal with this, right? Because this is not very beginner friendly. Okay, so how would you do that? Well, okay, Node. When you install Node, it comes with what's called a Node Package Manager, NPM, right? So Node Package Manager is some software, right? You can read, it's a Wikipedia description, but it's a package, right? It helps you get packages for JavaScript. So what are packages? Again, think of a package like a huge toolkit, right? The toolkit contains everything you need in order to code in JavaScript. Everything you need to add more functionality to your code, right? So there will be a package out there to deal with Twitter interactions, right? And all this stuff. So there's actually a website for it. If you go to it, you can not only look for packages that you want to do it. So let's say you wanted to look for Google Maps API, right? You want to build some kind of map thing. Well, there are some APIs here. They're a little bit complicated, but the one we're going to look for today is just one to deal with Twitter. And I will not, okay, so we have a couple here, Twitter, all this stuff. Let's just pick the first one. And then, okay, so now this is the slightly harder part. So I have zero experience with any of this stuff. So you guys are going to have to, you guys are going to watch me struggle and deal with all this. Okay, so how do you actually get this package now? How do you put it onto your computer? Okay, that's the first thing we're going to do. So we're going to type, the first thing you got to do is figure out what the, okay, well, if you see here, okay, this is going to tell you a lot. Okay, all right, I need to stop saying okay. So the name of the package here is called Twitter. It's straight up just Twitter, right? And that means if you type in npm install Twitter inside of your command prompt, it will install this Twitter package onto your computer, right? So yeah, again, follow this instruction, right? And just you could and then throw it into the command prompt, right? Now it doesn't have to be in this directory file. Doesn't matter. Let's just run the code. Or yeah, run this command. All right, and so I'm gonna give that some time, right? As it installs Twitter. All right, it's gonna take a while. Blah blah blah. And this explains how you're gonna deal with the Twitter API. So look at this first line. This line, remember, this line will only come with Node. So if you try to run this first line of code in the old style of JavaScript where you use an HTML file and a browser and blah 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 and a server, right, like a Python server, this will not work. And the reason is because require is a Node.js specific command, right, a function, right? So this doesn't exist in regular JavaScript. It came with Node. Now, what does this actually do? Well, it looks at your computer, finds the package called Twitter, and then creates an object out of it. And if you remember what an object is, it's a bunch of keys and their values, right? And so the key in this case, or actually, okay. So in this, okay, now when you type in require, it'll give you, you're gonna have to look up the API. Oh my gosh, okay. So where do we go from here? Once we say require, what does it give us? Well, it's different for every single package. And in this package, it gives you, I guess, a class, right? And then you can use this class to create a new object called a client object, right? And the client will let you, it will either let you get tweets from a Twitter account, or it will let you post tweets, right? It'll give you a bunch of options. So how do you know what require will get you? Well, you're just going to have to look up the API. So again, what is the API? It's what lets you, the developer, interact with whatever toolkit someone else made, whatever application they made. So whoever made this Twitter, this Twitter package, their API is right here, right? All of these things right here. This is the API. This is the documentation, and I guess documentation is a better word because that's what a documentation does. It teaches you how to use the API. So down here you have examples on how to use it. We can look up the tweet example, right? And then it'll probably send you to a GitHub page most of the time. And then it has a bunch of examples, right? Examples that will teach you how to actually use this API that they provide, right? So let's check on this. Okay, it's finally finished installing, which means we can start coding using this Twitter API. Okay, so the next step is a lot of the times when you're using an API like a massive, not a massive multiplayer online, like a widely used application like Twitter, you're gonna have okay, never mind. I scratched that. Whenever you're dealing with an API that usually deals with accounts, so like Twitter, where you have an account, right, where you have to log in order to post a tweet or anything like that, you're gonna deal with what are called consumer keys, consumer secrets, access token keys, and access token secrets, or at least 2 of these 4. You're gonna typically come across these. And again, think of these like the usernames and passwords for any application you use. Except in this case, there are 2 of them. There are 2 sets of usernames and passwords. And you won't always come across consumer keys, blah blah blah. These are only when you're dealing with an API that involves accounts. So if let's say you were dealing with another database, right? A database that was that they provide flower images or something like that. You're dealing with a flower image API, and it has nothing to do with accounts. They just let you get their flower images, right? It'll help you find flower images or something like that. Then you typically won't deal with all of these, access tokens and consumer secrets and all that. So how do we actually, or what are these consumer secrets? Again, they're usernames and passwords, right? And how do we actually get them? Well, let's hop on to the developer account of Twitter again. This is, I'll just look up Twitter API again. This is what I do when I forget what to type in, right? I just look for, the developer docs. And I'm going to go to my dashboard. And so each API will be very different. Again, remember, you're going to have to look at your situation for every single API you use. You're going to have to look at their documentation. So remember, look at the documentation when you don't know what to do. And so I'm not actually supposed to go to the dashboard. I think I'm supposed to go to get started. All right, get started. So I can create an app, right? I'm going to create an app. Okay, I already have, I remember I had an old, this is my old project. Okay, the goal was to take every tweet that Trump posted, translate it to Spanish, and then post it back. But I don't think I have time for this. I'm gonna create a new app. Right? I'm gonna create this new app. I'm gonna call it random num. Random num. All right. This app, you're gonna have to every time you because Twitter they don't like nasty bots. They have you like explain everything you're gonna do. They have you explain everything you're gonna do so that you don't mess around on the website. So this app will generate random numbers and tweet them out. So we're gonna explain that. Website URL, you can just kind of throw in anything in there. Oh, that's kind of, I don't know what those YouTube links are. I'm kind of scared. Okay. So I'm gonna give just a it doesn't matter what website you give here, honestly. This is basically the website it links to, when they use your app or whatever. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about these, all this stuff. Just at the very end, be here. At the very end, be here. Really look. Okay, at the very end, I just explain all this. So this app is only for educational. Oh man, I can't spell. Educational purposes, and will only generate and post random numbers. Okay, minimum characters 100. This the app I will create is only for learning and educational purposes because I want to learn more about the Twitter API. I will only generate numbers and post them. Okay, we're gonna create this. Blah blah blah. Okay, read this out. Make sure you're not being malicious. Okay, all right. So now that you've created an app, the Twitter API itself, they give you your keys and tokens, and so immediately you see here, your API keys, and you notice, Luke, why are you showing your passwords and your username up here? That doesn't really matter. I don't really care. You guys can mess around. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, the consumer API. Oh, yeah. And anyways, you can always regenerate them. So in case someone, they do something nasty, you could always regenerate your own keys. Okay. So you could just throw them in your code, but I'll show you a safer way to do that, because one thing you want to be wary of is if you share your code in the future, let's say you're talking to your future employer and he wants to see some of the code you've worked on. You can't just share him this, because then he has access to your consumer keys and everything. So how do we actually incorporate this stuff in our code without being really bad with this stuff? Okay, so how we're going to do that is we're going to create what's called a JSON file. So click new file in JavaScript and type in config.json. This is our configuration file. Inside here we're going to have an object, right? And it's what the object is going to store is this stuff. All right, so we're going to have we're going to create an object, right? And if you don't remember how to create an object, here's how you do it. You have the key, so I'm going to call this consumer key, and then the value. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to hop back. Oh, you got to put it in a string. Don't want the space, add a comma, and then I'm going to do it for the next thing. Consumer secrets. So this is the stuff that the actual person using your app will use, right? Now we're not creating an actual app that people out there can download and stuff. We're creating a personally used app, so the consumer key and secret don't really matter. But in your case, let's say you want to create an app one day. This stuff is how the actual consumer will access. The person using your app will actually access your stuff. So I just created some access tokens and secrets and stuff. This is the stuff that will actually let the player, or not the player, the person, let people kind of, I guess, hack into our thing. This is how we access our actual stuff. This is like our username and password, like, what I'm saying. So this is actually kind of important. Oops, caps lock. But don't worry, I trust you guys that you won't, eventually I can regenerate these, so it doesn't really matter to me. So go ahead and just, type in this stuff, and we're creating an object in a JSON file. And again, okay, so what is a JSON file, right? So a JSON file is just like any old text file, but it has a certain way of storing your stuff. And the reason it's useful is because a lot of languages nowadays, including JavaScript obviously, will allow you to do what's called parsing a JSON file. Parsing basically means turn this into an actual object that we want to deal with. So let's go ahead and for now, okay, let's just figure out how to use this Twitter API. Okay, but let's ignore that second step. Let's actually start using the Twitter API. So I'm gonna copy. You can just go ahead and copy the example word for word until you want to change something. So that sounds really bad. Don't worry, it's not like plagiarism. This is actually they're teaching you how to use it. So you actually want to use it right. So you want to do this correctly. Okay, so client equals, so what I'm doing here is, this is the class, right? And so to create an object using that class, you have to pass in, you know, a new version of that object. And so what does the actual Twitter thing need? Well, it needs an object, and this will sound very familiar, and it needs an object containing this stuff: the consumer key, the secret, the access token, and the secret. And so again, the client, okay, here, let me teach you a little bit of, you know, computer science real quick. So how, you know, how all of this account stuff works is, again, you have a client and then you have a server, right? So the client can ask stuff from the server, and the server can send things back, right? And the client can also post things to the server, and the server can, you know, send back a little receipt saying, hey, this is what you posted to me, right? And so that's what I get this. That's what this whole REST API is all about. So REST is about getting and posting, and then there's another one called deleting, right? So these are all, you know, stuff to, you know, that you can research on your own and everything, but that's the basic understanding of it. We're creating a client right now because we're not the server, right? And later on, or like in the future, you can learn how to create a server. But for now, we're just a client, and there's a Twitter server out there, and we're basically asking the Twitter server to get us tweets, or to, you know, we're either asking that, or we're gonna post tweets to the Twitter server. And again, we're the client. So we're creating this client object right now, and we're eventually gonna, I guess, teach it how to get tweets from the server. So what do you actually pass in here? Well, again, you pass in an object containing these four things: their usernames and passwords. And you'll notice that's exactly what the JSON file is. So how do we actually get the JSON file? Well, okay, let's do some computer engineering work, and let's Google this: how to parse JSON JavaScript, right? So this is how you would Google these kind of things, right? So how to parse JSON and JavaScript? Well, JavaScript comes with this, you know, function already. Yeah, okay, so yeah, okay. So first we have to, whoa, okay. So this teaches you, so this, so this is a huge string, right? And it's an object string, right? So it's like an object inside quotation marks. And so to parse that, you know, when you say JSON.parse, it takes this string and turns it into an object. So you can think of JSON parsing as turning strings into objects. But we don't. What we want isn't this. We want to learn how to parse a JSON file, right? So, okay. Well, actually, okay, yeah. This actually also teaches us that. So let's go back to the same code, and it actually learns how. It teaches you how to parse JSON in Node. So now Node will do this. Okay, so to actually get the JSON, whoa. All right, okay. Oh, okay. Well, that's really convenient. Okay, I think Node parses it for you. Okay, you know what? Let's do a test right now. So we say, let's config equal require dot slash, and then the name of the JSON file we're doing. All right, config.json. Okay, let's try this. All right, what did I just do right now? So require, again, it takes like a file, right? Like Twitter, or the package Twitter, and all this stuff, and it turns it into an object, right? An object or a class, or depends on the API. So I think in this case, if we just give a file and it's the JSON file, it'll convert it for us. But we can just test this by logging config right now. Let's see if config is a string. Let's see if it's an object. Okay. So let's go ahead. You know, we're right here. We might as well type in the command here: node script.js. Excuse me. Oh, okay. So it gave us an object. Okay. So again, what we wanted is to store our configuration, our little usernames and passwords, in another file. And the reason we want to store it in another file is so that if we ever share our code, we can just share the script.js file. We don't have to share the config.json file. We can tell someone else, hey, create your own JSON config.json file, use your own access tokens and consumer tokens and all that, and then just format it in this way so that it's called config.json, and then the code will automatically take your file and then convert it into an object by using require, right? Store it in config, and then it'll pass config into the client already. So by saying new Twitter config, we're creating our client, right? We're giving the client the usernames and passwords we want. All right, so okay, we don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Okay, again, so what this needs is an object containing these 4 things, right? And we just created a file that contains those 4 things, and then we required the file. And the reason we have / here is because dot brings you up a directory, and then slash brings you back down a directory. And this is a very common convention to use / for files that are local. Local as in they're in the same folder. So if you want to require something in the same folder, you would use /. Now because Twitter is somewhere else on your computer, you would just type in require Twitter. And I think it's actually in node modules. So what happened here? Why do we have this whole node modules thing? Once we typed, why do we have this whole node modules thing in my folder now? Well, remember when you typed in npm install, what's it called? Twitter, yeah. What the node package manager actually did was install all the packages, all the standard packages that you need inside of the folder, and also install the Twitter one. So if you look in here, you're gonna find Twitter because that's the one we installed. And so now what this does is it lets us compile, or basically run the node, blah blah blah. It lets us run our JavaScript file using the node compiler, and it came with a bunch of these node packages pre-installed. So it just helps you out. And then it also gives you like a package lock JSON. So don't worry about this. This basically includes a list of all the packages that you have with you. Okay, so all right, a lot of detouring and getting sidetracked and all these tangents. Okay, let's get back into this. So you notice, okay, we have a couple of things here. Let's look at their example and how we can understand or learn from it as the actual coder. So this is params, right? Var params. Coders love abbreviations because they don't like typing a lot of things. Param stands for parameters. So how do we know what? And the parameter is screen name, right? So a screen name and Node.js, and the value for this screen name is Node.js. So the parameter is we're looking for the person with the screen name, Node.js, and that's the parameter, right? So how do you know? You might have a lot of questions right now. How do you know which parameters to use? How do you know, what values to give them, right? So again, that's on the API, right? So let's go ahead and look for get show ID. I think this is what we're looking for. Screen. No? Yes? Okay, the better thing to do is to just look at the actual API that, the person that created this package made. Alright, so. Okay, well. Ooh. Alright. So, okay, you know what? Why don't we read it top to bottom? I don't want to read it top to bottom. Okay. Alright, you can tell I'm very impatient. Alright, so, okay, this is everything. What they give, blah, blah, blah. For application only based authentication, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, bearer token, requests. Okay, so, okay, they tell you the standard requests here, right? So what is a request? Again, it's when the client asks something from the server, right? And you're the client. Remember, you're the client, right? Or whoever you give this app to, they're the client. The server is Twitter, right? So we're asking Twitter, hey, can we get something? So you have to get, there are 3 things to this. Okay. Whenever the client asks something from the server, it usually comes in the form of a URL. So you'll notice here, a URL, isn't that what's up here right now? Well, that's exactly what's going on actually. So here's a little lesson for you. Whenever you actually type in a URL at the top, youtube.com, right? youtube.com, what you're actually doing is you're the client, right? Your browser is the client. You're asking the server YouTube to give you the content of their website. You're asking them to load. Wait, I actually don't want to use Seema recommendations. Okay, when you type in this URL, you're asking the server. Oh, I shouldn't go here either. You're asking the server to display this page right here, this exact page. That's what you're asking. And so that's basically a GET request, right? So you're getting, and then the path, is obviously this path right here. And then parameters are special things, like again, if you wanted a certain screen name, or you wanted a certain user's ID or something like that. And a callback, what is a callback? Well, here I'll explain callbacks like this. All right, so let's say you have a conversation, right? Now, yeah, you know what? Actually, that's a really lame example. Basically, what is a callback? It's a function that runs after the request is made, and the reason is because okay, yeah, okay. You know what? Let me explain it this way. Okay, so code typically runs synchronously. All right, so let's start from the here. Okay, code typically runs synchronously. What does this mean? Well, it means your first line of code runs, then your second line of code runs, right? So again, wait, let's start over again. The first line of code runs, then it finishes. The second line of code runs, then it finishes, right? Then the third line, and then the fourth line. It runs from top to bottom, right? But the thing is, when the client asks something from the server, think of that like sending a letter. Now, when you send a letter, it takes time, right? When you mail something out, it takes time because things don't travel instantaneously, right? Information doesn't travel instantaneously. So when we send this GET request, it gets some time. It takes some time. It takes some time for the server to actually receive that request. And so in that time, your code actually keeps on running. So if you have a GET request here, right, and then some stuff, and you have another line of code, right, var a equals 1 plus 1, and then you have some other code here, blah blah blah. This code might run, this 8th line of code, the var a equals 1 plus 1 code might run before the GET request finishes. Now that's a bad thing, because what if over here, right, in this 8th line of code, in this a equals 1 plus 1, what if this line of code needed what you got from the 6th line of code? So a better way to explain that is, again, you send a letter, right? You're a mailman, right? And actually, you're not just a mailman, you're a person, right? And you want to send a mail letter asking, your boss, hey, can you give me some money, right? And then now you don't, okay, yeah, here's the example. You don't have any money, okay? And you're gonna mail the government, right? You're gonna mail the government, hey, can I get some money, okay? And then what if you mailed the letter asking the government for money? Okay, this is really controversial. Maybe I shouldn't use this. Okay, you're broke again. Okay, man. Okay, let's use an example. So let's say you're out of money, okay? And you mail, but you have enough money, I guess, to mail you have a bunch of letters around, papers, and envelopes around, and you mail your friend a letter to your friend asking him for money, right? And he'll give you money, right? It'll take time though, right? But what if you had to buy like groceries right there, right? So you send a letter, then you buy groceries without any money. And then the letter comes back with some money in it, right? Then he comes back and gives you money. Isn't that a problem? You can't buy groceries until you get the letter back, right? That was a super long-winded explanation for what a callback is. So what is a callback? Well, the callback basically is the function that runs after it's done waiting for the GET request to finish. So what the callback does is it waits for the letter to come back to you, right? Waits for the server to tell you what you actually wanted to get, and then it runs the callback function, okay? So that's why the callback is important, right? Because it only runs once you've got your stuff, right? Imagine buying groceries without having the money, right? So the callback is, think of it as reminding yourself only to buy the groceries after you get your money, right? Okay. Oh boy. All right, so that was super complicated. Now, you'll see in their examples here, why are their URLs, this is their paths, that's a tongue twister. Why do their URLs only have like 2 things in them? Shouldn't they be these like long HTTP, blah blah blah.com things, right? Well, in fact, when you created your client, the client already built that first part for you. So you're only typing everything after this first chunk. So you're typing everything after here, all right? Think of it that way. So what do we want? Well, let's see what they can offer. Okay, let's go back to let's go to their examples again. Type in tweet. This is the tweet information. So here's an example of a post request, right? So imagine posting something on Twitter, right? This is an example of a post request. The URL is statuses/update. You're posting an update on Twitter, right? On your statuses. And the parameter, like some extra information, right? A parameter, think of it as extra information, is what you actually want to tweet out. Imagine tweeting nothing, right? And then this callback, right? So for a GET request, the callback would get you what you wanted to get, right? So a GET request, an example of a GET request would be asking the Twitter server, hey, find me like Trump's tweets, right? So the post request, right? Well, okay, yeah, sorry. Let's go back to the GET request. So the GET request, an example of a GET request would be, hey, find me the Twitter, the latest tweet from Donald Trump. All right. The parameter would probably be Donald Trump's username, right? The extra information is who you want to get it from. Then the function, the callback function, it would have an argument of the tweet of Trump's latest tweet, right? So what does it look like for a post request? We're not asking for anything back. We're only posting something. Well, it's basically just going to be a receipt, right? A receipt telling you, hey, here's what you posted. It's not going to tell you, here's what you posted, okay? So if you wanted, again, a GET request, here's an example of one. We're not going to deal with GET right now. This is, an example of one. Here's an example of one. And you can, again, Q is probably something to do with who you're asking, right? You're going to have to scroll around and look for how to get, which parameters to type in, right? But, and then you can also look over here, and I'm pretty sure all of these these are all valid parameters. So, okay, again, we're going back to the base Twitter documentation, and they have examples of, this should probably make more sense now, what their API is looks like, right? Their API, you see status is update. It's a post request, and the URL you have to use is status/update, and it gives you a list of the parameters you can use. So you have status, and then a colon, and then what you want the status to be, right? What you actually want to post, and then if you want to do a GET request, right? You would deal with that, right? Oh man, okay, so yeah, this is probably looking a lot more, yeah. Okay, GET tweet timelines is probably what you want to look for. This will get you entire, Twitter timelines, right? So I'm gonna click here. You can get someone's entire timeline, or like all their latest tweets, using their user ID or their screen name, right? And so that's what yes. Okay, so this is how you'd use their API. You would say client.get, right? Because that's how you would do that. Client.get, and then you would use the URL, which is the whatever is over here, right? Is statuses / home timeline, something like that. And then you would give it parameters, which you can find on the API, right? And then you would define a callback function. So we're gonna do that right now. Let me stop blabbing around, okay? So let's test posting something, okay? Clients.post statuses / update. We're just gonna post a status, and the status we're gonna post is. Now, there's probably a better way to do this, and what I mean by the better way, you can put this. Oh, by the way, it's optional whether you or not you want to put the key in quotation marks. I typically like to do it. Okay. Oh, and it's also optional whether or not you want to use single or double quotes, but I usually I like bounce between. It's really bad. Okay. So there's probably a better way to do this. Again, you can type in var params, right? Var params equals an object, and then you just type params here. Why don't we do that actually? Yeah, params. Params, right? So you can either just give it the object, or you can just give a variable containing the object, and then we should have the status here. Status. We'll do a classic hello world. Hello world. Okay. And then comma, and then function, and then how does a callback work? Well, a callback will get certain things from the API, right? And the things we'll get they depend on the API. But in the Twitter package case, right? It'll give you an error, right? Excuse me, which might be empty. The error might be nothing. It'll give you a tweet, which is probably what you posted, and then it'll also give you a response. So what is a response? Well, in the Twitter API case, and I know this just from experience. You can Google more about this, but a lot of APIs actually usually have the response parameter, but or input or argument. I don't know what you guys call this, but the response is typically some kind of number between like 0 and 999, and it just has information, right? So So some examples, I guess, examples are probably the best way to learn in this case. 200 means it's good. You made a good request. It worked. You're fine, right? 200 is good. 300 I think is a warning. 300 is like you did something kind of wrong. It didn't exactly work out right. 400 and above is usually a bad thing. So 400 means, I think, like you're missing something. No, sorry. 404 means like what you were looking for is missing. 400 is just like it was a bad request. And how do you know about all these? Bam, you Google this, you type in API response codes, right? Response codes. And these are all, yeah. So they have a list of, REST API. REST is this whole get and post thing. They have a list of all these, these different, errors you might have. And so the response is just a number, right? And it might be a string containing the number of how your request made, how your request went. Oh man, I'm losing it. Okay, let's just finish this. Okay, so now the callback function, because we're posting, all we can just check if not error, as in if there's no error. Sorry, I've been coding in Python. Okay, if there's no error, we can console.log the tweet. Yeah, this is good practice, and the reason I'm doing this basically doesn't matter. This is basically good. Oh, I spelled error wrong. This is good. I guess what's it called? Bookkeeping. Yeah. So this is just in case you mess something up. This is a good way to check on how you did, right? So if there's no error, post the tweet. And then the reason you do that is just in case you want to see some more information on the tweet you just posted, or you want to check if you accidentally messed up, right? It's a good. So this is some it's like a receipt, right? This is like a log, right? A receipt telling you how you did. So this is why I did this up here, this piece of code. I could just do nothing for the callback. I could make it empty. I can make it nothing. But I'm doing this to check all my code, right? So just in case something went wrong, I can look at what happened because I logged the tweet. And the tweet is not just a string, and I'll show you guys right now. So let's run this code. Enough of me blabbering, let's run this code. Nodescript.js. The best way to learn is by practice or example. So again, this is the tweet. And you probably just expected you probably just expected it to say this, the text, hello world, but it actually gave you an entire object containing all the information about the tweet. The ID of the username of the user that posted it, the ID in the form of a string, the time it was posted, some entities like hashtags or symbols or user mentions, the source as in like the actual URL to the thing, some information on the user that posted. Again, their ID as a string, their name, their screen name. It has all of this. It has all of this information. So that's why that's why it's important to log the tweet afterwards, because you get all this information. What if you find out, I don't know, that you posted it under the wrong screen name or something like that? That's why this is important. Okay. So and now if you go to your Twitter account, let's hop on Twitter, twitter.com. You'll notice you just posted hello world. Isn't that crazy to see your own creation? So now how do we so what's the next step? Now at this point, we're going to try and have it post a random number every 100 seconds. And then you can try the example problem of see if you could figure out here's the practice, and then I'll go into the next thing. Okay, so here's the practice problem or the challenge. See if you can read get in live time, see if you can get Trump's tweets and translate them to Spanish and then retweet them back to him. See if you can get that to work, right? So a little hint, first of all, is this whole string thing. So what is a string? Well, again, we've been making only requests right now. It's like sending mail back and forth. But if you couldn't tell already, and this is why we don't use mail nowadays, that's really inconvenient, right? Because you send a request, and then you wait a while, and then you get a response. And then maybe you send another one, and then you wait a while, and then you get a response. That's really annoying, right? What if you wanted to maintain what's called an active connection, right? Or like a continuous connection with the person or with the server, right? So that at any time, if something happens on the server, it instantly sends something to you. And then if you want to send something back, you instantly send it back. So you don't, or not instantly, but you automatically do it, right? So that's what stream is. Stream basically means stay online, right? Don't just send a response and wait for it and then do nothing afterwards. Send a response and then wait for one actively, right? So basically what it's for is if you wanted to get tweets actively, right? So if Trump tweets something actively, as in he tweets something, your code instantly gets it, right? Which means your code has to be running. And I'm not going to get into how to have your code run all the time. That's a whole other thing. But if Trump sends something, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time. Okay, if Trump tweets something, and you wanted to do something to it immediately, like translate it to Spanish and then send it back to him, you'd have to have a stream, because doing a client GET request only works, if you run it like every 10 seconds, right? Hey, did Trump tweet something? Nope. Okay, all right, I'll check again in 10 seconds. Hey, did Trump tweet something? Nope. Okay, I'll wait in 10 seconds. The stream actually waits until Trump actually posts something, so you don't have to constantly ask. So that's what the stream is. Okay, but again, let's just have this. I have like 6 minutes left. Let's just use these last 6 minutes to get this to work. So what do we need? The first thing we need is a while loop, right? While true. Yeah, while true. While true. That's easy enough, right? While true. Now, one problem with this is going to run forever, right? That's fine. But the other problem is it's going to run too fast. So we want it to run every, 100 seconds, right? So how do we do that? Well, let's look up how to have code, or how to pause code JavaScript. Again, this is how you would do this. So there's delay, sleep, pause, all these things, right? And all these tools. I think I'm just going to use the first thing I find. No, I don't want to use that one. Whoa. What in the world? Okay. So again, this is what coding's all about. It's waiting and looking things up. So these guys are creating new functions. Why are they doing this? Set timeout, which can delay an action, for example. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna use set timeout. So what is set timeout? Well, it runs a function every blank amount of seconds or milliseconds. So we're gonna type out set timeout, and then the function we're gonna run is client.post, right? So client.post, it looks kind of weird, but again, it's just one really long function, right? You give it 3 things, right? And each of those things is still pretty long. So we're gonna run this function, and then comma, and then we have to give it how many milliseconds we want. So a millisecond, remember, 1,000 milliseconds to a second, which doesn't make any sense, right? Shouldn't it be like 1,000,000 milliseconds? Excuse me, doesn't matter. Okay, so we're gonna have this run every day. So I'm gonna pull up a calculator. Okay, one day, how many seconds in a day? Okay, and then we're gonna multiply this by 1,000. Okay. 1, 2. Actually, yeah. Okay, we're gonna multiply that one by 1,000. So now we're having this run every day, right? Yeah. So what this is gonna do is every day it's gonna post hello world. Now what we actually want it to do is we want it to post a random tweet, a random number. So I'm gonna get rid of params. I'm actually just gonna toss an object in here. That object I'm gonna toss is, again, we have to have it have a status, right? Again, the status is just the text inside of the status, the text we want it to display, and then I have to have a random number. So let's look up JavaScript random number. Man. So math comes with JavaScript, so we just have to type in math.random, and it'll give us a random number between 0 and 1. I want it to be a random number between 0 and 1 million, right? So 1 0 0 0 0 0 0. So if you ever wanted to generate a random number between like 0 and a certain number, math.random gets you a random number between 0 and 1. So just multiply it by the max number you want, 1 million. So this generates a random number between 1 and a million. And then it stores inside a status, which is the text that we actually want to display, and then we're posting this tweet, and then if it goes through, I don't want to actually log the tweet, that takes forever, that's really long. I'm just gonna log sol.log tweet successful. Oh wait, whoops, what am I doing? So I want to get that back. Instead of logging the tweet, I'm just gonna write tweet posted tweet successfully. Alright, that's all I want. So I just want some information to know how well it did. And then it runs this function to check, hey, if there was no error, just, give me back, just tell me post a tweet successfully. And you can imagine what would it do if you did have an error? Well, you can figure out how, if error equals like, something. If you find out what error it is, what kind of error it is, you can check, hey, if you get this error, you can deal with it this way by like not doing anything or like waiting or something. So yeah, that's how you, or like waiting till the next time. That you can deal with that on your own, do some own research. But again, what set timeout does is it runs this function, the client post function, every this many seconds, and this many seconds is just how many seconds there are in a day, or this many milliseconds, sorry, and this is how many milliseconds there are in a day. Okay, and this will run forever because it's while true. And yeah, so if you ever want, now how do you actually do this? You just run the code. Let's run the code. Node script.js, and you might be saying to yourself, Luke, won't this run forever? What do you do? Oh, what did I do? Oh, I know what I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna create a function, callback. Oh, okay, yeah. Here's a good solution. Function callback. What it does is it does this, and that's the callback I'm gonna give it. So this is a good solution. Okay. So what does this do now? Well, I created a new function. I created a new function that just posts the tweet, and now I have that run every second, every day. All right, not too bad of a fix. Okay, if you don't know what I just did here, again, I created an empty function that basically runs the code that I wanted to run every day, and I put that inside of this function called callback, and then I'm passing the callback function into here. Now, why didn't it work? It's because I'm calling the function here. I just have to give it an empty function. This won't work if I give it the parentheses. Yeah, so again, I have to give it the name of a function not calling the function. This is calling the function because I'm using parentheses. I just want the name of the function. Okay, enough of that. I'm over time. Let's just run this code. Oh, hello everyone. We're back. Okay, so all right, I have a bunch of junk code in here. So okay, what we did was we created again this callback called getRec. I changed it to getRec. I didn't want to call it callback. We called it, and then we used to set interval. So while true is a really bad idea. It just destroys your RAM and everything. Don't do that. So set interval basically repeats this function every this many seconds, and you can actually use E in code. It'll run every day, and if you see in your code, again it works. So if you ever want to cancel, press Control-C. Man, okay. Oh, finally over. Okay, so what now? All right, so you're done. You're a master coder. You know how to make apps and deal with APIs and all that. So what's the next step? Well, obviously these were horrible tutorials, and I'm really just here to get you guys started and to be like an open resource just in case you guys wanted to ask me questions or anything like that. So that's what these videos were. I'm sorry if they were total garbage. That's okay. Where do you go from now? You might tell yourself, I'm gonna go on Code Academy. I'm gonna learn another language, right? That's totally fine. But I don't really like using these coding boot camps or these coding websites like Code Academy. If it works for you, then it works for you, right? But personally, it's not my favorite, right? So what can you do, right? So there are a bunch of YouTube channels that I highly recommend, and I'll put links in the description because I love these channels so much. These are my favorite channels, and they demonstrate a lot of they basically teach you a lot of cool coding things. So I'm gonna list a few. Coding Train, Jabril's. Coding Train does a lot of JavaScript. He used to do a lot of Java, so you can look at his old videos for Java. He does a lot of JavaScript now. He worked with processing. So yeah, Coding Train is one of my favorite channels. They teach you a bunch of stuff. They teach you up to like neural networks and machine learning. But he does a far better. The teacher there does a far better job of teaching all this stuff than I do. So I was actually very inspired by him. So I'll link that. Look at him if you want to review your JavaScript. Don't look at these videos. Look at his videos. He will probably teach JavaScript a lot better than I will. He will teach you how to use a bunch of these tools a lot better than I will. And then also another person named Jabrils. He teaches two languages. He teaches C# and Python. So if you ever wanted to learn those two languages, you can look to his stuff. Again, he also dealt with neural networks. He deals with a lot of Unity. So if you want to make games, he's a good person to go to. He doesn't teach people how to make games, but he can inspire you to do so. So again, there are all these resources that I highly recommend. They will teach coding better than I will. They will teach you how to use all these tools. They will teach you how to further your knowledge. So I'm gonna go ahead and edit all these videos now because I know I've been procrastinating a lot, but I will do that now. So thank you guys so much for watching. This is the final stream. This is the final episode. This is the final video, and I will maybe and hopefully see you guys later. Keep on coding.